Graham Potter, sacked at Chelsea. He arrived with such a strong reputation. Sue, has that been tarnished by what's happened in the preceding 7 months then?
I'm not sure tarnished. I think he'll obviously, he'll be gutted that it hasn't worked out for him, because I think when you look at where he's come from to where he ended up, it's been huge, hasn't it? You've gone all the way through the leagues. You've been successful at each club you've gone to. You've been successful at Brighton. You've left them in a good place, where De Zerbi's then gone and took them to the next level. And you've gone to Chelsea. It was a massive opportunity for him. It was probably a risk from Chelsea to do that, and a risk that unfortunately for him hasn't paid off.
It's probably a risk from him as well, though, wasn't it?
Yeah,
to test himself.
Definitely.
What is the difference then? Because it's still 11 players on the pitch, plus your substitutes against another 11 players on the pitch. So what is the difference between being manager at Brighton and manager at Chelsea?
Expectation.
Yeah.
Expectation's everything. From a fan's point of view, I think they want success. They want it instantly, which is modern society these days. Everyone wants everything straight away. I think from the player's point of view, though, Rob, I've often heard things spoke about Messi and Ronaldo, and they often say, how do you coach a player like Messi and Ronaldo? What do you do to them that makes them better? Do you leave them and simply let them be a sort of a free spirit and do what they want to do because they know how to do it anyway? And I listened to an interview with Messi, and he said the best managers are the ones who challenge me every single day and try and make me better, because they don't fear that I'm a complete player. They see things in me that can make me even better, and I respect that. And I think that's the big thing when you go into elite teams. And Chelsea are, we've said that many times, they are an elite team with elite players. Is you've got to make training interesting, fun. You've got to make the environment fun. You've got to make it relatable to a Saturday afternoon or a Wednesday night, whatever game situation that you're going into. You have to give them clear instructions and a plan of what is expected of them as well, and make things very, very simple. And that is, and I think as well, there's got to be an element of honesty towards the players. That's one thing that players are always desperate for. Don't be talking behind my back, or don't be telling me one thing to my face and then hearing things behind your back. I think that's the other thing as well. So trying to get all that balance right is very difficult as well.
Yeah, okay. So they've got Bruno in charge. How do they go about finding a replacement, and what urgency is there? Because it's not just Liverpool tomorrow night, they've got Real Madrid coming up next Wednesday, and that could get really messy, couldn't it, if they don't get someone in there or they don't get a grip of the situation. We saw what Real Madrid did to Liverpool, and you fear the worst for Chelsea going into that tie at this precise moment.
Yeah, definitely, and you need a manager, I suppose, with a big personality, somebody that can deal with that expectation that you were talking about, that's going to go in there and work with this talented group of players, but make them a team, because at the minute there's a lot of individuals there, so it's difficult to do it in such a short space of time, because he's not going to have any time to work with the players before, well, clearly not before Liverpool, but then before the Champions League. It's difficult, but it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity that I'm sure most managers would bite your hand off to go and take charge of that group and that potential. And if it is a long-term project, if they can stay in it for the long haul, then you think those players growing together, wow, what a team it could be.
Yeah, hindsight is a wonderful thing, isn't it? It gives me 20/20 vision. And we don't know what was going on behind the scenes either. We've got to say that. But the idea of sacking Thomas Tuchel, who had made them champions of Europe, champions of the world, does that now look like a mistake?
From my point of view, yes. I loved him. I loved his passion on the sideline. I loved the instant impact he had on Chelsea when he came in. I think it was very apparent what he was trying to achieve in the way that he played. I've always said this about the best managers, and when I talk about the best managers, I think when we look at that era when we had Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp going up against each other. Then Tuchel was involved in that situation as well. They all have this demeanour of being very likeable, where you'd love them to be in the company, but almost as well, when you knew you'd stepped out of line or your performances weren't good enough, there was that edge to them that you didn't want to cross them, that you feared them. And I think it's not a fearing as in a bullying fear, but it's a fear of, I've let him down. And I'm frustrated with myself, and I know I'm going to get his wrath, but I almost deserve that. But I know it's coming and it's deserved. So I think when you've got that element of it, I think that's like a really healthy balance to have. I think it's almost a confidence as well. When he came in and gave his first interview, Thomas Tuchel, straight away I was engaged with it. I was thinking, I want to listen to this guy all the time. Whatever he speaks about, it's always the truth, and it's always very honest and to the point where you were just like, yeah, I get him completely. He's one of those managers, when he speaks, I always think back and think, I'd love to have played for him.
Yeah.
Really would love to have played for him. And I think the Chelsea players were probably sad to see him go. There's not many managers, when they leave a football club, where players are really gutted that someone's left. I think they had that with Tuchel.
And I think there's also a lot of fans as well, isn't there?
Oh,
that were gutted that he left. I think
Still
when you bring in, I think when you bring in 3 trophies in 20 months, you've done a pretty good job, haven't you? So, yeah, it probably doesn't look so good in terms of he's gone. You then bring in Graham Potter. That's your next focus. You're saying this is a long-term project. It's going to work. We're going to be really successful. And then that hasn't worked either. You just think the next decision after getting rid of Thomas Tuchel had to be right. So it doesn't look too good, does it?
The other thing as well, when Tuchel came in, he demanded success from the off, didn't he? Whereas there was a mixed message when Graham Potter went in, was like, this is a long process, we're here for a long time, it's going to take time to do this. And it was almost like the players were like, oh, right, OK.
Yeah.
We'll just take our time then doing this. Whereas, no, that's not the message that you should be giving. It's like, this is Chelsea Football Club. We need to be winning tomorrow, and I expect to win tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there are parallels there. I think it's fair to say the Chelsea players love Carlo Ancelotti and were disappointed when he left. Chelsea then brought in a young new manager in Andre Villas-Boas, and that didn't quite work out. So there's parallels to maybe the Roman Abramovich era being played out here under Todd Boehly, but it was very noticeable at Stamford Bridge on Saturday that the crowd had turned. Boos at half-time. Boos at full-time. They cranked the PA system up, which is loud enough as it is. I think my eardrums are still bleeding from it. But it was almost to kind of drown out the boos at the end, because if they're not turning on, the idea is if they're not turning on Potter, they'll turn on the owners and the chairman, and therefore the club has to act. So how does Todd Boehly and the co-owners come out of this one? Well,
he has to make this decision so important now, isn't it, to make sure that all the money that he has invested is put to good, to make sure that they get the manager who comes in with a winning mentality, perhaps more experienced, and understands how to work with pressure. But when you look out there at the moment, does anyone really strike you and stand out? I think the obvious one is Nagelsmann, isn't it? We're all talking about him, but he's in a bit of a sticky situation with being on gardening leave. They paid 25 million euros to get him out of his deal at Leipzig. Will they want players, or will they want money back for that? That will be a very interesting one. But he's only young as well. However, I do think he is an exceptional manager.
So Tottenham, Chelsea, Leicester in the Premier League, all looking for managers. Nagelsmann, you've mentioned there. Zidane has been floated about. Luis Enrique, Maurizio Pochettino, and others have been mentioned. At Chelsea, though, if you are one of those managers, is Chelsea still the pick of those 3 clubs that you go to, or are Tottenham above them? Are they looking at Chelsea and thinking, I don't understand the transfer policy there, so maybe even a Leicester is above them because we'll get support? How does this, what's the pecking order here?
Oh, it's tough. to sort of say that, isn't it? I suppose it's what's right for you as an individual manager, what you think's the right sort of fit for you, and where you can take that club the furthest. Because of course you look at Chelsea and you think the potential and the quality that they've got there. Why would you not want to go in there and manage those players? Yes, you could look that Tuchel's gone, then Graham Potter's gone, so you could worry about that, but it's a massive opportunity. But then you look at Tottenham still in with an opportunity of finishing top 4, you've got Harry Kane to work with, and Leicester, well, they'll be hoping that, wouldn't they?
If he goes to Chelsea?
Yeah, or Man United, or... Yeah, well, it is. I just think if you're going into Chelsea, I think you have to be a manager that's got a huge personality, that can deal with expectation, can deal with pressure, and can get the best out of these players, whoever that may be.
You've just defined Sue Smith there. Wonderful.